Hello, my name is Saul Murillo. I'm from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, and I am a cultural manager, artist, plastic artist, and a community manager. Before starting, I want to thank the invitation to this talk to the Jansoukhya Foundation for, I hope it pronounced like this. I also want to thank archaeologist Tariq Tambolin and all the other people involved in this project. The topic I'm going to talk about it is the rules of cultural managers in museums. Let's start. To enter into context with the theme, I would like to give a brief image of who and what the cultural manager does. Until a few years ago, the cultural manager was the person who, with criteria career, but his intuition and his will to do something, responded to the multiple and complex aspects that converge in the fact of the cultural heritage of a place. Today, the activity of cultural manager is recognized. That it's great. The cultural manager has a particular objective: to be a specialist in the fields of cultural research, cultural policies, and art education, communication and media, cultural spaces, etc. These are the ways in which the cultural manager can specialize. The process of professionalizing cultural managers in Latin America has been characterized by identification of three important elements: the recent recognition by the state of the figure of the cultural manager as a specialized agent in the design, development, and evaluation of cultural actions, the emergence of professional and union networks, associations, and organizations, and the exponential emergence of university training programs throughout the region as degrees in technical and postgrad courses. Here in Mexico, the education and culture that all Mexicans have is a constitutional right. So we can say heritage has gained a great tourist value, and in many cases it has become a cultural product consumable that some institutions have managed better than others. And that it starts to be true here in Mexico. Internationally, there are various institutions whose main purpose in the dissemination and protection of culture, both national and international. In the latter, the Organization of Ibero-American States, the International Council of Museums, the United Nations Organization for Education, Science and Culture, stands out in the Mexican national sphere. They highlight the National Institute of Anthropology and History, INA, and the National Institute of Fine Arts, INBA, such as most important institution in the country. In the case of Mexico, INA and INBA are the organizations that led the regulation of museum venues, sites and monuments in accordance with the international standards dictated by UNESCO, ICOM, and OEI. However, given the nature and diversity of museums founded in the country, it is observed that they governed by means of other own regulations, all through attach as far as possible to those issues by international governing bodies specialized in the matter. The International Council of Museums is in charge of setting the minimum professional standards and standards of excellence for the international museums community. Well, but my idea is not to focus on the cultural policies that manage museums, but rather on the game that the cultural manager plays in museums. Museums are living spaces that requires the performance of professionals in this specialized field to be fulfilled so effectively. It's rule that the public appropriating its context and may contribute to spread the cultural values and education of the population. The cultural manager works the general criteria that are used in the planning, organization, and operation of museums in most of the world. They are capable of planning, designing, and making a concrete museum proposal based on bases consistent with current cultural policy. Depends of the museums. In order to understand the process of development of an exhibition in a museum, it is necessary to know how to differ three basic concepts for a cultural manager. First, museum, that is a place of contemplation and is an institution at the service of society that acquires and communicates and exposes with the purpose of studying and saving education and culture. Representative testimony of the evolution and nature and man. The second is museology. Reserves one of the most controversial and influential institutions in the cultural and heritage field, the museum, with double Greek etymological origin. It is science of the museum. It deals with developing the best forms of organization, administration, preservation, and presentation. And at last, museography. That summarizes everything that currently refers to the museums. Analyze the technique of the museum concept as its own and specific object. In this way, we can reflect on the types of museums and exhibitions that exist. The museum's elements that are used in a collection or a new exhibition must fulfill the function of manual interactivity or emotion, causing the viewer feelings or questions that led him to the knowledge of something specific. This so that the reading during this journey, the exhibition throughout its rooms is enjoyable and enriching, thus generating a greater influx in the spectator and the mental interactivity or emotion makes visit the museum a cultural activity. But what should a museum on this century be like? They must be interactive in the interaction experience that allows knowing and remembering can be experienced. They must be participatory. At the visitor, aiming at the visitor and his needs, and affordable for everyone in what is known as barrier-free. In this country, there are still museums that only have one person who attends in the public. Is a ward, a guide, or a cashier at the same time, and who have the minimum budget to maintain themselves. Museums in our country have very little budget. They are not self-sustaining. To achieve this, the presence of cultural manager is needed. This is why it is needed. Who will seek financing? Looking what museums must look for that complex route of self-financing to be living cultural centers and not dark spaces where objects have an incomprehensible description. In the last 5 years, the law of the National System of Museums was created, but it exists on paper, but not in practice. In the private sector, museums are managed more effectively when they include cultural marketing strategies in their operations. So, what is the work of a cultural manager? The cultural manager is multifaceted. He knows about project formulations, museums, cultural studies, history, knows about marketing, administration, heritage interpretation, and the most of the education focus on our career. The most important thing of the manager is to work in a project basis. To do this requires having an overview that allows you to manage resources, ideas, time, and content. So I'm going to start to explain the stages in a museum project in which the cultural manager participates. The first stage is planning. In this stage, it will be a question of constructing of narration, a narration of the executed museum project. Topics related to the architecture of the place, the museum script that the exhibition will have, the thematic script, and the type of audience to which the presentation will be addressed. The curation of an exhibition is carried out on the planning stage. The result of the curatorship is a script, the curational script. It is also known as an academic or scientific script. From this script, the museum artist will have to transfer the concept and objects to a specific space, but this is not done directly in the room. Within the planning to the museum artist works with the academic script and with the architectural plan of the place. He develops in the museum script where he points out where and how each exhibition element is located within the museum spaces. With the museum script, the planning stage of the execute museum project is concluded. In the second stage is designing, and the third stage In this stage, work is carried out on the preliminary project. The catalog and possible publication are started, as well as the obtaining of the works and their conservation within the facilities. It is in the part that the cultural manager must take care of the museum's international cultural policies, since this may vary depending on the type of museum, the theme, among other things. The third stage is the one in which the cultural manager participates less, since the creation of environments is being working on at this point. At this stage, important aspects such as architecture, the organization of the interior spaces of a museum, installation, and assembly are reviewed. The fourth stage is the public. The cultural manager knows that behind an exhibition there is necessary an intention. It is made for someone to visit, however, simply say someone, people, the public, visitors, user, it seems to get too general. It is more logical to think that there are exhibitions for a specific audience, such as children, adolescents, adults, families, foreign visitors, for example. And there will be others that can be characterized for all the public. It is at this stage that the cultural manager works communication strategies in the museums. It is important for the cultural manager at this stage to ensure that the public appropriates the contents of the museums or the exhibitions, understands them, reflects on them, and internalize them so that later they contribute to the cultural dissemination and education of the population. The fifth and last stage involves the management of museums and exhibitions. Viewing a finished project also requires a lot of work and talent invested in the managed process. The cultural manager in the specific field of museography must know that in order to be successful, the project must be consistent with the cultural policies of the stage or market ones by the area authorities. You must also know the steps of a successful management process that are presentation, the settings, the introduction of the public to the project, the selection of the type of public, and main objectives for its dissemination and promoting through the different conventional and digital media, such as possible stories, brief explanation in print media like schedules, posters, invitation to the different cultural radio or television programs, among others. The manager also supports the listing processes. As you can see, the work of the cultural manager in general terms is intensive, but this is why in particular each manager set to specialize. In my particular case, I like to work with budgets and everything related to the promotion and dissemination of events through the different conventional channels, social networks, and now take social networks now take a very strong stance on this process, and that is why managers' update work must be constant. I appreciate the attention given to this talk, and I again appreciate the opening of this space to explain a very specific part of the work of the cultural manager in museums. For now, I say goodbye. Greetings to all from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. Goodbye.